Hi, Michaela. Welcome to the Art of Healing. And thank you for waiting while I'm faffing around trying to work out why it's not going live today on Facebook. But we will put this link in later for people to see. So welcome. I know nothing about you at all, so please do share everything. Tell us about you, a little bit about what you do, and where are you based? Even I don't know any of that. Tell me.
So, hi Amanda, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here and I'm excited to share a few things. So, I'm based in Maidenhead, in UK, and I don't very much like labels, but we sometimes need them to be able to, navigate. So, I describe myself as a healer, as a change bringer, and as a catalyst, which is elegant way of describing what I do for people. I've trained in modality that is called Theta Healing that I use within my practice as well. Um, yeah, I don't know what exactly would you like to know. I respond
Everything and
very well
anything.
to I respond very well to questions.
Okay.
Once I start talking, then I'm good.
Okay, fine, no problem. Well, I just wondered, so how long have you been doing the work that you do? Do you feel like have you been born with something, or do you feel you've trained and learned and come to maybe a deeper understanding of you? Where are you at with that?
That's a very interesting question. I believe that everyone is born with those abilities. Someone may be a bit more open, someone may be a bit more dormant. I remember as a child, I had some of the abilities quite open, but I had no one to help me understand it or navigate through it. So it was only in my adult life when I got to understand, when I got to realize that there is something like a spiritual world that actually exists. And the current work I do, I've been doing it for, I believe it's coming to 6 years. So it's been a journey. It's been a journey of rediscovering what I did as a child. Um, and I think it's also an always ongoing journey of unfolding the gifts and discovering what else is possible.
Absolutely.
There's always like a next step where we can take it.
Absolutely. There's always things to learn and progress and grow with for our own selves, isn't it? And therefore it progresses for our clients too. And so how do you work with people? Do you work directly one to one? Do you work in groups, or do you work over Zoom? Do you work, in person? How is that?
At the moment, I work like one on one. I believe that that's a really good way of getting really nice, deep healing. Um, I would like to work with groups eventually, but at the moment, my focus is on one to one, mainly over Zoom. But if people want to do in-person sessions, some people prefer that. That's also available. But it's yeah, at the moment I'm focusing on creating a really nice space where the person as an individual can go deeper in understanding self, and that may be sometimes much easier for the person when they do it on their own, because they don't have to think about who else is around. Although the space of the group, the energy of the group has loads of beautiful qualities. So
Yeah,
I do group meditations. That's another way of working, but it's more of a guided meditation rather than a healing. The meditations also have energy clearings. So the work I do is very much working with the subconscious mind and discovering what the patterns are, what blocks, what limiting beliefs might be there, and clearing that energy, those blocks, and helping the mind to find a different way that works better for the person. So I actually work also with groups in the meditations that at the moment are also online, but I'm hoping to start holding them in person because that has a very different vibe, and I think there's something magical about actually gathering people in the room.
Absolutely. Feels very much. I know you're part of the WhatsApp group that is a community that feels very much a vibrant, thriving community. And I sadly haven't been able to attend as much as I wanted to. But I completely agree with you that, yeah, being in person is there's something magical and special about being able to connect in. And yeah, I think, and certainly with meditation as well. Although it works magically online too, I think it also is quite nice just to be in the room, to feel that connection directly and not sort of just to switch off the machine and walk away afterwards. I think it's nice to then be able to come together and yeah, share. So what are there any particular areas for you that you work with directly, or are you finding that I don't know, sometimes we kind of, I find in my own work of healing that I can sometimes get a theme of clients coming along, and then there's another theme coming along, and it's all about really our own journey. And do you find that you're in a theme of clients at the moment? Is there a way that you're being directed at the moment and challenged, or are you still kind of there are lots of different ways of different types of people that are coming through?
I find it that what we go through is usually what we master, and then the people come to us
Yeah.
because we already know how to do with that. And what people come to me with a lot is um, gaining clarity, and that's the main thing that I'm focusing on. So it's gaining the clarity, knowing self quite a lot. Actually, I think um, that's the most important thing. I think in any anything really, because the more you know yourself, the easier everything gets. The more you can um, gain the clarity. I think that's like if you know who you are, it's much easier to know where you're heading, what you want. Um, People come to me a lot with the way they relate to other people in their life and the world around them. So the connection and how the connections can become stronger, healthier as well. So there is definitely a theme that that is repeating. And it's usually, as you mentioned, that there might be some challenge for you in your life, and then people perhaps come to you. I find it quite a lot that when there is a period in my life when I am really solving a particular challenge, then I power through it, then a lot of people actually then afterwards come to me with the same challenge.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's been at the moment, it's very much about the clarity, very much about knowing self and being comfortable with that. Because one thing is when you know who you are, and another thing is when you have the peace with it, when you feel comfortable with being who you are.
Mm. So my challenge to you is, how comfortable are you with you?
It's a very, very beautiful question. It's definitely an ongoing journey. There are there are certain aspects that are so easy to actually accept and be with it, and there are certain aspects which um, we might find a little bit challenging to actually look at, or to even receive that yes, this is part of me, and yeah, I need to learn to live with that.
Mm.
um, but it's something that's becoming very easy. um, at the moment there are certain aspects of me that I even forgot. And I think like we all do that, we forget that there are certain parts of us and they are coming to the surface, and it's really beautiful to have the acceptance with that, having the allowance of being the way I am at the moment, and understanding that the way I am right now, it's not going to be forever, because we constantly keep growing, and as we grow, as we encounter new experiences, we keep changing. And that's actually a very important thing to also understand, that we don't get stuck in that, putting ourselves in a box, putting a label on the box, and then being stuck in this is the way I need to be, because that was one of the struggles I had in life as well. That okay, so this is how I describe myself, and I have to always behave only within these brackets. And that can very limit you. That can make you very unhappy, because then you don't explore all the potential that you are. It doesn't allow you to have different experiences, because we change throughout the years. And I find that's something that a lot of people now come to me as well.
Okay. And was that
Because
through your family upbringing? Was that expectations from others to be a certain way, or was it purely an internal journey for you to understand that you don't have to be a certain way? Did you feel that there was an expectation that was driving that from somebody else, or?
I think it was conditioned in some way by my environment, but it was very unconscious. There's just an expectation of how people should be, what is deemed normal, and how the life should unfold. And people are just so used to that being this way that no one even questions it. So I come from a place where people weren't used to really questioning anything. This is just the way it is. You live your life coming from this point to another point, to another milestone, and that's how it is lived. So it was very much unconscious conditioning from the outside. And I was a very different child. I was very how to describe it. There was no one else who would think the way I thought, including the adults when I was growing up. So in some way, I also then started to condition myself internally in order to be able to fit, in order to be able to function within the environment where I was growing up.
That must have felt quite lonely at times then.
It did. But you get used to that's that's the problem. You can very, very quickly get used to that loneliness, and then keep creating that pattern. But now looking back, it was an experience. I think it's maybe not necessarily something that the soul always has to choose, but it's an experience that I now have, and I can treasure it, and I now know what loneliness feels like, and I know that I can choose something different.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that polarity.
Yeah. And do you find that it's having to make a conscious choice to do that? So to stop the mindset, because the way I'm looking at it is seems like it could be a perception to have that I am lonely, and therefore, we become this self perpetuating cycle of that. Actually, do you have to make a conscious choice in order to create your community to be a part of? Are you someone that's sort of really trying to push out further to not have that sense around, or do you feel like that struggle has been overcome and you've understood that now?
I think it definitely is about the conscious choice, because it's something that you consciously also are aware of, that you're feeling lonely, that you might not feel like you're fitting anywhere. But from my practice, because I work a lot with the subconscious mind, there sometimes only making the conscious choice might not be enough, simply because the subconscious mind can have very good reasons why to force the loneliness, because it will always try to keep you safe. It will always make sure that you are protected. So I believe it is very much in the conscious decision, but it's also good to look in what is actually underneath that, what is driving it. Of course, it's going to be uncomfortable at first because it's something that hasn't been done. And what happens with that conscious decision is you can then start observing what is actually happening if you start trying to socialize, if you try to fit yourself in a group. What actually happens, what emotions come up for you, how you feel in comparison when you're on your own versus when you're in certain group, or what's the difference between being in different environments, basically. So it definitely always starts with the conscious decision.
And for you personally, because it's quite I see it as quite a challenge to go to a different country and start, having to, well, speak the language. Did you speak English before you came here, or?
No, I didn't. I just had to learn because I had no other choice.
Yeah,
But I think it really accelerates that learning process, because when you see people how they move and when they talk to you and they point at things, you very quickly pick up. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to learn languages quite quickly.
that's good.
That was super helpful. Um, but yeah, it's it might be scary, like forcing yourself into different situation, into different scenarios. And I think you can master a certain areas of that you might find certain environments where you feel very comfortable, and then you might find other areas of that you still feel like it's not quite there. It still feels very scary. So I think it is a process. I think it is a process that um, might take quite some time. And I think that's also very important for people to actually keep in mind that um, we don't need to figure out everything at once. We don't need to. Well, I wanted to use the word fix, but I don't like using that. It's like it's not broken, so there's nothing to fix. But it actually, but we don't need to figure out everything straight away. And we might find just one group. It could be a group of friends, and it could be a very small group of friends where we feel very comfortable. It's very easy to socialize. It's very easy to connect and actually feel like I belong, feeling like I'm loved and accepted. And there might be another group of people where we don't experience the same. We still might feel like, oh, maybe I need to be in a different way. Maybe I need to reshape myself. I should speak certain way, or I should not say particular things. So it is a journey. It is a journey, and it's important to have that compassion with self, that
Yeah.
patience with self as well.
Sounds like you've done a lot of work. Is there any particular areas or methods that you have done? Where have you been to go on your journey?
The absolutely most beautiful thing that I am very grateful for being part of my life is Theta Healing, which is the modality that I use in a combination with other things in my practice. And it's been super helpful because that's actually a tool which can help you consciously access the subconscious mind, so you start to understand where the patterns are coming from, and how they are actually serving you, because whatever is not working for us is in some way still working. class. And that was very helpful because it helped me to know myself better. Instead of thinking, oh, what's wrong with me? Why am I this way? Why it is so hard to do something or to stop doing something? It really helped me to become more of me in a way that works better for me. And another very beautiful tool is access consciousness, which functions on questions. And I'm a person who absolutely loves asking questions all the time. So for someone as curious as me, it's the perfect tool. And something very beautiful, magical happens when we remain in the question instead of going into conclusion that things are a particular way. So those were the two main things that really helped me get where I am at the moment, and really basically I don't want to say reshape necessarily, but to become more of me, to have that confidence being actually in my own skin, and then being who I am, and actually not only work with me, but also share the gifts that I have with other people, because that's something I don't think I would be able to imagine back in the days.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was a very interesting story how I actually came across anything spiritual. It's some people are so fortunate to be actually brought up in that way and have that awareness.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't have anybody. I was very much science-based, like everything has some logical reason. The science can explain everything. I need to understand why it works, how it works. And um, the spiritual world always finds its way into your life when the time comes. It's like, okay, well, that's been enough. That was an interesting experience. Now you actually need to start doing this. And it was actually through my own struggles where I started to search for some alternative ways of dealing with the physical health, actually. And I I always feel like I always call it like a happy accident, because I don't believe in accidents or coincidences. I think it's just a synchronicity that things just happen when they need to happen. But I like to call it like this happy accident where I came across Theta Healing because I thought I was booking a completely different session. And um, it was actually through that science-based curiosity why things work and how they work that I decided that I'm going to take a course and I want to understand what it is and why it is. And that was really it. I could never imagine doing this for other people. So when I got into the healing space, I thought maybe I can use it for myself, maybe I can use it for my family. And the idea of doing this for other people where it would be beyond myself or the family, that was very scary. That wasn't, I couldn't even imagine that like those few years back. And now it's just, yeah, of course that I have these gifts, and of course I'm going to share them. Of course that it brings me so much joy to actually see people transforming their lives as they are coming to beautiful realizations for the work we do. So yeah.
Lovely. And so was your health unwell? Were you physically unwell at some stage?
Yeah, it was. I used to suffer with um, like a chronic fatigue,
Oh,
which is in the beginning it's not that bad, but you get stuck in a loop
mm,
where all the, even like the basic things that you do in life become very challenging.
Mm.
And it was starting to affect my relationship at that time. And I thought, well, I need to do something with this, because nothing is, it doesn't matter how much you sleep and you don't understand why that is happening. So I thought, let me find some different way. Let me find some alternative way of, dealing with this, because I don't know what else to do with that. And so today I'm very grateful that that happened, and I actually got to understand why it was present in my life, so I could create adjustments in my life to prevent that happening again. So it wasn't anything like life threatening or anything like that, but it was very, very heavily impacting my life to a point where I was really unable to function in the household.
What helped you the most in that process of healing?
Hmm.
Was it did you have to change diet? Did you have to change lifestyle? Did you have to work on your emotions? Was there a particular, or was it a combination of everything?
It was actually quite easy in that particular with that particular thing. It was very much emotional, and it brought into awareness that there are things that don't have to necessarily come from us. Because what was happening there, I was transmitting a lot of energy from my surroundings through my own body. I would be connected to the people around me who would be feeding on my energy. I would be basically leaking the energy to other people in the attempt to help them, and especially those who were the closest to me, like my parents, like my mother. And that was a very, very unconscious choice to do. But I believe that there are very, quite a lot of empathetic people also listening to your videos, so they can probably relate that being in around people can become very draining, and sometimes we don't know how to stop that, and often we don't even know we're doing that.
Mm.
So in that particular instance, it was just about cutting those cords and bringing back their own energy and not allowing the energy to leak out. And it was a very, very beautiful experience to feel so energized after that. Um,
Do you is it a journey still? Do you still have to manage that process a lot to ensure that you don't become fatigued?
I no longer become necessarily tired, but it's an ongoing process on realizing that what I'm feeling at the moment is not actually mine. So it's again the process of knowing self. The more you know self, the easier and faster it is to pick up on what is actually happening within me, and does that belong to me?
Mm.
Is this feeling, is this emotion, is this thought actually mine? Because to a degree, everyone is functioning a little bit like an antenna to receive what is happening around them. Some people are more sensitive to it. Some people will take it into their own space,
Mm.
and some people will just shake it off at the end of the day. But it's definitely a process of getting to know myself well enough to be able to differentiate between what is mine, what belongs to not necessarily only people, the environment where we find ourselves. Still a little bit of journey. It's getting much better, um, but again, it's always a ongoing journey.
And so, from recollection, is there any kind of client that you've had where you've seen a transformation and it you weren't expecting that and it was better or more, and it's something that you even have you had a moment of wow, this is profound, Have you had that experience?
Yes, yes. I have been fortunate to see some really, really beautiful transformations for people that we were working towards them, but they happened um, the way they happened and the effect it had was beyond what was expected. And um, I've seen people making very different choices in their life uh, based on the work we did because it allowed them to have so much self-respect that the way people would treat them wouldn't be acceptable anymore for them in a way where the person was really able to start making very, very different choices. And I remember with this one client also, um, when it comes to boundaries, um, what this person was looking for was I want to be able to set them so I can actually ask for what I need, that when someone displays certain behavior that I can stop it. And what happened there from this person is because the energy changed so much of, of this person without even having to say anything, the people around them started to behave differently towards them and actually naturally really respected the boundaries, and without having to ask for certain compensation that people would start offering, which was very beautiful. So yeah, we were working towards that, but it really exceeded the expectation. Some very, very, very beautiful transformations I have seen.
Lovely. Fabulous. And so when you work with somebody directly, do they come to you, you discuss what it is that they want, and is there a lot of is it a lot of communication involved in the process?
Yes, yeah. I think that the communication is important because yes, as a practitioner, I could be doing all the work and I could be reading the energy and perceiving what is happening and just saying what I'm seeing. But I believe that if the person gets their own realizations, if you ask the right questions to direct them, it's it has much more power. So I like to the way I work is there's a lot of communication happening, um, helping the person to navigate deeper where they need to be. And my role there is just to hold that safe space. So the person doesn't need to go into trauma. The person doesn't need to go necessarily into drama, doesn't have to relive whatever happened. So my role there is very much hold the safe space for them to feel comfortable enough to access what might not feel um, even possible for them on their own, and having their own realizations, having their own insights as they are going through that process. I find it far more powerful. So definitely a lot of communication happening, and then then my role also is just okay, let's now energetically change this for you, as you now realize that this pattern is good for you in this way, but it's also causing you maybe discomfort or damage in other area of your life. Let's now just bring it more into alignment so you can make it work for you, those benefits that you're gaining from that without having to keep creating the same scenario, the same situation, the pattern.
Sounds great. When can I sign up? Um, so my reason for doing this podcast was because I became quite unwell myself through my father dying of cancer, and few years back now, 15 years ago now. But that set me on a journey of self-discovery, and it set me on a journey of learning how to understand my emotions and because my most famous response to how are you is I'm fine. And so as part of that journey of understanding, I've always wanted to be able to ask people, how are you? And it not to be I'm fine, but to be really in this moment, how are you? And so I'm asking and offering you the space now to just say, how are you?
That is a very beautiful question when it is directed the way that you are actually asking it, instead of just, oh, hey, how are you? And not, not really listening. And how am I? It's not something that we often sit with.
No.
But I find myself feeling more peaceful, regardless of what is going on in my life, whether it's a short-term challenge or long-term challenge. I find a really beautiful underlying peace underneath all of that. Um, Even in this conversation, I'm still able to, like, I feel actually quite nervous because I'm not used to talking this way very much. Um, I become very self-conscious when I know something is recorded. So
As do we all.
there's this nervousness. Suddenly things happen in my head, rather than having that ease with, if I say something, no one can keep replaying it.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Still having a quite nice peace underneath that. So it's a very, very beautiful question. And thank you for the space to be able to reflect on that.
You're welcome, very welcome. When I feel into you, I have a sense of tears came immediately to mind, but as you say, underneath that, there's a level surface behind that. So it's like a short term, a release that we all perhaps sometimes want to just step away from and not allow. And and I understand this space is not necessarily the ideal place in which for you to come to that. So I appreciate that you come to really reflect, because often people, even if I word it that way, don't still take the opportunity to reflect because of the nature of we're being recorded, and there's the fear of being fully authentic in that space. But I wanted to honor that for you and to allow for that emotion that I can feel slightly there, that is okay and that is acceptable, and just wanted to just allow for that space to say that everything is welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people are often afraid that if they allow themselves to be authentic to that point, they might lose authority, perhaps. And yes, there are certain boundaries to it. And I think each person can decide how much it is okay for them to share. Um, I think it is okay, and I think it can be beautifully healing also for the people who listen or who watch to that, because then they realize that the person on the other side is still a human being. And um, in this space um, of the spirituality with the healers, with coaches, and this whole industry, it sometimes looks like, oh, the person has everything figured out, and like their life is rainbows and unicorns and butterflies, and we might go into self-judgment of, why I've done so much healing and I've done so much work on myself and I still feel this. And it's important to realize that it's okay. There are, but we will never stop experiencing challenges. We will never stop experiencing fear. We will never stop experiencing, um, sadness or anger or any of these emotions that for some reason we decided to label them. Some of them as good and some of them as bad. And one of the things that I really strive to create, along with helping people to really know self, is creating harmony and balance. And it's not to get rid of that which is like the bad, that uncomfortable, this, I need to be like fully healed and like never be afraid and always be confident. No, the balance is that it will always go slightly up and slightly down. It will always go out of alignment to keep finding that middle, because the way I like to explain it is, when you have that machine that shows your heart rate, if it goes up and down, you're alive. When it's flat, there's no line.
Mm.
And you also don't want it to go too high and too low. You want it to go just ever so slightly up and down. And I think being authentic in that way and allowing myself to, be comfortable with being uncomfortable and sharing the story can be so beautifully healing to somebody else.
Mm.
Because when I listened to somebody who allowed themselves to share that, it was healing to me. And I realized, oh, this person is actually just a human being, and it's okay for me to
Mm.
actually be the way I am, to be where I am,
Mm.
and understanding that it's not about getting rid of it, but rather, okay, I know I will never stop being afraid of things. How can I make my courage and the desire to achieve something be stronger than the fear, and allow the fear to be there to show me that either something is truly dangerous, or the fear is showing me I'm doing something different and I'm doing something new. It hasn't been done by me before, and that's why it's scary. And using it as an indicator. And at the same time, continuing experiencing the life, because life happens and sad things will happen, painful things will happen, and things will anger us, and it's okay to feel anything and everything. Yeah. And I believe that's what the balance is about. It's not about just like a flat line, but realizing that the way we are and where we are at the moment, it's fine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I find also that it's very, the more we can talk from the I and in our space and from our heart and from our truth, the more we actually attract people into us, and rather than to talk from another person's perspective or externally. And so ultimately, we all as humans want that connection, don't we? We want to feel. I certainly do. I know that I have always been striving for that. And once I learned to how to fully be happy and settled within myself, I then created more connection externally. People wanted to come and were more drawn to me because I was more drawn to myself. So yeah, and it in even in me sharing this now, it becomes more connected for other people to understand that we're all on the journey. We're all learning, aren't we? We're and nobody is higher or greater or better. We just are all along on a path, aren't we? So thank you so much for coming along to chat today and sharing everything that you have. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the conversation before we close up?
I don't know. There's nothing really on my mind. But what I would like to share, um, that I feel would be very beneficial is actually an invitation to my meditation evenings that I feel are actually creating that beautiful space, connecting with self, and then actually start connecting also externally. Um, so I believe there should be a link underneath the video.
Yeah.
People can access it, and I just would like to send out that invitation to people to give themselves the permission to be who they are, and be courageous and brave enough to actually go deeper within and start discovering the sides of self that we somehow, either ourselves or even by the outside circumstances, we decided there's something wrong with them, or that they are somehow unacceptable. Because when we start to look within, when we start to connect with those parts of us, we can start cultivating them. And that's just like the last thing that I would like to share. That when we when we leave them buried somewhere, they grow very wild. They are untamed, and when that part of us gets triggered, it really takes over. It's out of control, and that's where we could perpetrate that feeling of something's wrong with us, and I shouldn't be this way, and let me, cut off even more of that. And I think it's very important to go within. And you mentioned it yourself that as you made the peace with the way you are and create a really beautiful space within you, it's so much easier and probably even more enjoyable to actually connect with the world around. So through the self-discovery, we can start cultivating those parts and actually make them work for us. And I think it's very important because then we know where our place is, and we can live much more quality life, and without even having to actively do something. Through that, the people around us kind of get the permission for themselves to live the same way. So yeah, yeah, that's something that I would like to create more of. So if people feel called to it, if people feel it resonates with them, that they are ready to start looking deeper within, um, there are these meditation evenings that are once a month that I'm holding, and they are completely free to make it as accessible as possible for people.
Brilliant.
Investment is just the time in self, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, just sending out the invitation.
Perfect. That's very generous of you. So yeah, so if they just access your link tree, they'll be able to find how to access that. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming today and sharing everything that you have. And yeah, as we say, we've got all the links in the chat, so anybody is welcome to contact you directly if they need to. So thank you.
Thank you. I thank you, Amanda, for holding this beautiful space and um, allowing me to actually share the message. And thank you for doing what you're doing.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you.